Every economic crisis leads to a lot of uncertainty for companies. Many companies come up with fancy plans to minimize the damage. They call this restructuring of the company. But what they actually mean is firing a large part of the company's workforce to cut costs. This video will give you the 10 moments in history that the most amount of people were fired at once. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. I heard that people who subscribe to list lovers will never get fired. Let's get started. Number 10. Bank of America. 30,000 employees laid off in September 2011. Bank of America announced this huge layoff as part of a plan to save $5 billion. The bank recently announced a management shakeup that effectively will split the bank into two units, one serving consumers and one serving commercial clients. Bank of America had a total of 287,000 employees at the time. The move was part of an ongoing reorganization, which was launched 1 year prior. Number 9. Boeing. 31,000 employees laid off in September 2001. Following the 9/11 terrorist attacks, Boeing was suffering from a steep drop in airplane orders and a nationwide recession. Airline revenues plunged when passengers cancelled flights in large numbers following the attacks, causing them to cut back orders despite billions of dollars in federal aid packages. Boeing was unable to absorb the sudden plunge in profits, and the company was forced to lay off 31,000 of the roughly 93,000 employees who worked in its commercial airline sector. Number 8. Circuit City Stores. 34,000 employees laid off in January 2009. Circuit City filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on November 10, 2008, and announced a restructuring plan that included closing 155 stores. But in the midst of the financial crisis, the plan wasn't enough to satisfy the company's creditors, and when Circuit City couldn't find a buyer, a bankruptcy judge ordered the company to liquidate. This meant that all 34,000 Circuit City employees suddenly didn't have a job anymore. Number 7. Kmart. 35,000 employees laid off in January 2003. Faced with fierce competition and sales that continue to decline, Kmart decided to lay off as many as 35,000 workers and close 326 stores around the country in the year 2003. The executives described the plan as necessary for Kmart to become a stronger company. The closings of the stores also affected a large number of manufacturers that supplied Kmart at the time. Number 6. Ford. 35,000 employees laid off in January 2002. Around the turn of the millennium, legacy healthcare costs, higher fuel prices, and a falling economy led to falling market shares, declining sales, and diminished profit margins for Ford. Most of the corporate profits came from financing consumer automobile loans through Ford Motor Credit Company. When the U.S. economy began decreasing rapidly starting in 2001, Ford joined other companies such as Target and United Airlines in making massive cuts to their workforce. Finally, 2 million jobs were lost by U.S. corporations in 2001, and layoffs were carried out in all segments of the economy, from retail to manufacturing to finance. Number 5. at&t. 40,000 employees laid off in January 1996. Following the deregulation of the United States telecom industry via the Telecommunications Act of 1996, at&t began firing a huge number of workers in a bid to create more shareholder value. In the process, the majority of at&t technologies and the renowned Bell Labs were spun off as Lucent Technologies in order to protect the jobs of the 270,000 people who will make up the three new companies, according to CEO Robert Allen. at&t has since implemented multiple mass layoffs, including one in 2008 when they cut 12,000 jobs due to economic pressures, a changing business mix, and a more streamlined organizational structure. Number 4. General Motors. 47,000 employees laid off in February 2009. During the financial crisis of 2008, the automotive industry experienced a separate, but equally severe crisis. As the credit crunch dampened consumer demand and rising fuel costs impacted U.S. electric vehicle sales, General Motors lost billions each quarter. It is estimated to have lost $51 billion in the 3 years before the start of the 2008 financial crisis. GM spun off many of its employees in certain divisions into independent companies and eventually went through a Chapter 11 bankruptcy restructuring, costing 47,000 employees their jobs. Number 3. Sears. 50,000 employees laid off in January 1993. Prior to the merger between retailers Sears and Kmart in 2005, each firm underwent a series of major job cuts. The largest of the pre-merger layoffs came in 1993, where 50,000 workers were let go from Sears, following its discontinuation of the famous general merchandise catalog due to sinking sales and profits. Despite the signs that the economy was picking up again, these cost-cutting measures had to be taken to anticipate the shrinking business. Number 2. Citigroup. 50,000 employees laid off in January 2008. When the infamous 2008 financial crisis hit the world, Citigroup was one of the largest and most inflated financial institutions, covering a range of services including insurance, corporate banking, investment banking, and consumer banking. After being forced to take $20 billion in top bailout funds, the company engaged in a series of mass layoffs in order to stem billions of dollars in losses. The company ultimately trimmed 50,000 of its 352,000 workforce. In the last couple of years, Citigroup's workforce has increased again after 11 years of decline. Number 1. IBM. 60,000 employees laid off in July 1993. In the run-up to 1993, IBM was in serious trouble. The prevailing wisdom of the time was that IBM's core mainframe operations were about to become obsolete. Then all of that changed when Louis V. Gerstner Jr. was brought on as chairman and CEO. Realizing that IBM's lifetime employment practice was negatively affecting performance, Gerstner oversaw a massive overhaul that saw the technology firm taking an $8.9 million charge to slash 60,000 workers. From 1993 to Gerstner's retirement in 2002, IBM's market capitalization rose from $29 billion to $168 billion. Gerstner was hailed as one of the great CEOs of the end of the 20th century, and is said to have saved IBM $4 billion a year through its workforce reduction and cost cuts. Please subscribe to the channel for more content like this and become an official list lover. See you next time.